In today's podcast episode, we're going to explore why seven figures in revenue, why $1 million in revenue is not an empty marketing metric, but is actually a worthy goal for women entrepreneurs to consider pursuing. Don't go anywhere. When I was coming up in the world, 17 magazine and Cosmo magazine, quote unquote, helped me to understand some quote unquote useful metrics about being a woman. For example, I learned that 36, 24, 36 was in fact the ideal bust to waist to hips ratio. Now, Sir Mix-a-Lot in his magnum opus, Baby Got Back, would later clarify that this ratio was actually only ideal if you were 5'2". There were all kinds of other metrics and standards that I learned. For instance, there was a commonly held truth taught me by my friend Sarah at a sleepover that if you could trap a pencil underneath your boobs, they were too big. But if you couldn't fill a champagne glass with said mammary glands, then they were too small. The point of this, of course, is number one, oh my gosh, the crazy stuff that we as women are subjected to as we're growing up. And I'm not sure that that has changed in the years since I was a teenager, but truly that women are subject to a lot of metrics and standards. Now, I have no problem with metrics and standards, provided they're meaningful, they are contextualized, so you can understand the standpoint of the person who is offering that metric and standard and decide if you agree with them, versus arbitrary and manipulative. And so that brings me to the topic of today's podcast episode, which is why seven figures in revenue is a worthy goal for a woman entrepreneur. Now, recently, my team and I created and launched our new website. And my part of that project was to stay at 20,000 feet and look at our work and our messaging holistically. And as I did that, a question came up, and this came as I reviewed the material. And it came up in conversation with team members, which is, okay, Safi, your mission is to double the number of women entrepreneurs who sustainably scale to $1 million+ in annual revenue by 2030. So why $1 million? Like, why that number? Why is that a worthy goal? And what's the significance of this number? And I mean, if you listen to this show or watch our videos, you have heard me talk about our mission of doubling the number of women founders who sustainably scale to $1 million in revenue. And if you are a woman entrepreneur, especially if you participate, in the online coaching space at all, you've probably seen a lot of talk and reels and images and videos about scaling to seven figures. And I realized that in not taking the time to clearly articulate why $1 million in annual revenue is in fact a meaningful metric, then our work may inadvertently get lumped in as not meaningful metrics, as in that $1 million mark could potentially become the woman entrepreneur's version of 36, 24, 36, yet another standard of perfection that women are pressured to attain. And that's not where we're coming from. Building a company capable of generating over $1 million in revenue sustainably is neither an arbitrary standard, nor is it an empty marketing ploy. It's in fact a tremendously meaningful measure. So here's why. Let's dive into why. Let's talk about the anatomy of a classic woman-owned consulting or service business. So, as a solo entrepreneur who sells your skills and expertise, You can, with hustle, with connections, with marketing know-how, build a company that does anywhere from 50K per year, which is in fact the mean revenue for women-owned companies in Canada, which is where I'm based, to let's say 400K per year in revenue. Are there solo entrepreneurs who generate over 400K in revenue on their own? Sure. But what we have observed over years working with hundreds of women entrepreneurs is that this is a very common range that you're going to see. And it could be a solo entrepreneur. She might have like one team member or maybe two, but that's often what we're seeing. She's selling her labor. She might have a little bit of help, and she's often generating anywhere from 50 to 400K. So this is a huge accomplishment, by the way, and it's tremendously exciting. And if this is you, I just want to acknowledge how awesome that is and say, get it, enjoy your success. However, what we will often see within 2 to 3 years of operating a solopreneur business like this is that you may begin to experience the limitations of this business model. And those limitations may make you want to shift your model. So let's talk briefly about what the limitations of this model are. The first and sort of biggest one is that the money stops flowing when you stop delivering, because you are the business. The clients want you and your labor, and this can be tiring and high pressure. You have likely now grown accustomed to making good money. And what can happen is sometimes your lifestyle may have inflated to somewhat match that income. You may wish to earn more, but you don't necessarily have more to give in terms of your time and your energy. So on the one hand, things are really good. You're making money and you're grateful for what you have and proud of your success, as you should be. But over time, what we see is that sometimes women in this position don't necessarily have the level of freedom and flexibility that they want and deserve. Now, I have to share, a lot of people are okay with these limitations. Like, limitations are a natural part of living in a human body, that has to deal with time, the limitations of time and space, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs are going to be totally okay with these limitations of this model, and that may work for them. They may be totally okay with it. And so that's good. But some of you who are listening, who are in this place, or you might not even be in this place, but you want to get to this place and you plan ahead, some of you are going to choose to move beyond these limitations and scale beyond that. And so one pathway to transition that solopreneur service-based business model so that it can grow bigger than you and give you the money, freedom, and flexibility you want is to shift that business model. And that shift, like that transition, will almost always require the following: an investment in people to help you, the creation of assets, and the patient building of systems and structures. So let's say that you did the work I described above. Let's say you hire a couple of rock stars, and service-based businesses need rock stars, right? Because they have to deliver that quality of service. So you got to have really good people. You hire a couple of rock stars for a combined salary of, let's say, $185,000. You invest about 6 months to really build out your systems. You invest in a good lawyer to help you protect your IP. Maybe you hire a coach or invest in a quality coaching program to help you stay clear and purposeful. And as a result of that, over the next 12, 24 months, you actually double your revenue from 300K to 600K. And remember, guys, when I'm using these numbers, I'm using ranges to illustrate a point. So this sounds great, amazing, you doubled your revenue. But here's the thing: you're no longer a solopreneur who can keep most of what you earn. So you're making more revenue, but at this level, you may still run into cash flow issues because your expenses are higher. Now, again, if this is you, good job. There is nothing wrong here. And sometimes I find that at this level, we can still think a little small about the fact that your expenses are higher. That's called an investment. Maybe you've done that before. So if this is you, if you're in this place, good job. There's nothing wrong here. And it's a very normal rite of passage for business growth. And I call this phase of growing a service-based or knowledge-based business from like the 300K mark to like the 900K mark, the adolescence stage. And I call it the adolescence stage because there's a ton of potential and momentum, and there are a ton of growing pains. And in fact, I would say that this is often truly like the peak stress amounts for the clients that we work with, between like 300 and like 750K, sometimes as high as 900K. They're stressed. It's really, really difficult because they're actually truly making big transformation in their business. And transformation can be painful. Like when we think about a caterpillar, if you think about the image of a caterpillar who's transitioning into being a butterfly. So it goes into its chrysalis, and then it reforms itself from a caterpillar into a butterfly. And then it's got to bust out of that chrysalis. And the chrysalis doesn't just kind of peel open or zip open. There's no zipper. That butterfly has to work its ass off. Like it is really hard. They are working extremely hard to bust out of that chrysalis. And interestingly, if you get in and try to help them, there's a direct relation between how hard they work to get out of that chrysalis and how long they live. So sometimes at this stage, I'll be working with clients and they will just be so mad and frustrated. They wish they think they should be further along. They think it should be easier than it is. They think they're doing something wrong. They think other people are doing things wrong. They are fighting to get out of the chrysalis. And I know as a coach, it's really about witnessing that process and supporting them through that process, because you can't really, you have to get out of your own chrysalis. So there's a ton of growing pains there. And this is a very unique phase. And because women entrepreneurs who are in this category are so dramatically under-researched, most of the research about businesses is around businesses that are much bigger. That's because I recently literally had a conversation with a prof, like a director of a business school, talking about women-owned service-based businesses. And it was shocking, the complete low degree of interest in researching them at all. I was shocked, but also not shocked. But it's this lack of research that has resulted in the fact that we don't have a lot of conversation about the rites of passage and the development of these types of businesses. And so the experience when you're going through it is that you're alone, and that this difficult stage is not normal, that you're doing something wrong. And what I'm here to tell you is you are not doing anything wrong. This is a part and parcel of this critical transformation. So I'll sometimes hear women entrepreneurs going through the very real challenges of this growth stage express in frustration, it would have just been better to stay small. I shouldn't have made these changes. I just should have been doing what I did before. And hey, that could be true. It depends on your circumstances. And that is certainly one way of looking at it. But in our experience, the stay small, keep it all approach is limited in one crucial way. You have grown big enough to experience the growing pains and the very real and little understood challenges of scaling a service-based business. But your revenues are not yet high enough, nor are your systems and team yet strong enough and mature enough and developed enough to experience the ROI that is often just around the corner. In practice, when you thoughtfully scale your service and knowledge-based business to 7 figures through strong assets, systems, and team, which, by the way, just a call out, is what we teach in our programming. The 7-figure mark, I have observed, is where you as a founder truly begin generating the cash flow and profits that give you CIA, cash, influence, and autonomy. And this is typically why you started the business in the first place. And the CIA, the cash, influence, and autonomy that come from generating $1 million in annual revenue, makes the following 3 things that I outline possible. So we've talked about the anatomy of a service-based business and how that $1 million mark plays into the anatomy of a classic service-based solo entrepreneur business. Now I'm going to share what is possible in your business when you scale past that $1 million mark in this type of business model, and ultimately why this is such a worthy measure for you. So we're going to dive into that next. 3 core reasons drive us, myself and our team at Safi Media. These three things drive our very specific mission to double the number of women founders who sustainably scale to $1 million by 2030 through business coaching, entrepreneurship education, and storytelling with a gender lens. So these 3 core reasons are provision, innovation, and transformation. So let's talk about provision. When I was a girl, my mother, who was a stay-at-home mom at the time and didn't have access to her own money outside our family's money, she told me that money is power and I should always make my own. Now, her words were recently echoed by Melinda Gates following the release of the 2022 Goalkeepers report by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So this report tracks the world's progress towards the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and these sought a 2030 deadline for the achievement of global gender equality, right? So the UN was like, it is such an issue. Gender equality is such an issue impacting well-being globally that we're going to set a 2030 target of achieving global gender equality for girls and women around the world. And what Melinda Gates pointed out is that a specific and very concrete component of gender equality is a woman's ability to have and control sufficient money in her own bank account to preserve her economic well-being sustainably, right? That's what it comes down to. Do you have your own bank account? Is there money in that bank account to really be able to take care of yourself? Well, the global pandemic has been an absolutely terrible thing for women's economic empowerment. In fact, the Goalkeepers report showed that gender equality has in fact gone backwards, and it will not be reached until 2108, which is 3 generations later than we hoped for, meaning your descendants might accomplish it, but you're not going to get it. Your kids aren't going to get it. Your grandkids aren't going to get it. Their kids might. Okay. Oh, like hell to the no, right? It's brutal. The sad reality is that for all of our girl boss cultural obsession, despite the invitations from influencers to negotiate harder, to ask for more money, to take our seats at the table, women are economically worse off than we were 10 years ago. Now, here are some basic facts. The majority of the world's poor are women. Not only do women continue to earn 83 cents for each dollar a man earns, the average American woman will have saved 30% less than the average man by the time she retires. Plus, we live an average of 6.3 years longer. There are undoubtedly systemic issues that trap women workers and business owners in cycles of poverty and under-earning. And through our Safi Insights arm, we work on practical projects with governments, NGOs, and corporate partners to start to understand and address these systemic barriers to the economic well-being for women. However, based on our experience working directly with hundreds of women business owners, we have found that sometimes women underestimate just how much money they need to make and save to ensure they are well provisioned for their entire lives. And that's where our commitment to $1 million in annual revenue comes in, because by emphasizing the power and freedom that this revenue mark provides to you, our goal is to ensure you are equipping yourself and your teams with the practical means to achieve sustainable economic well-being. So that's provision. Generating 7 figures in annual revenue through this business model gives you the cash flow to provision for yourself and your team. Now let's talk about 7 figures and its link to innovation. So innovation is critical to the long-term sustainability of your business. While innovation and creativity are sometimes used interchangeably, they actually are not the same thing. So creativity drives unique ideas, but in order to be innovative, something needs to not only be unique, it also needs to be useful. So innovations might be launching a new product, a new process, or upgrading existing systems or offerings. Innovation is key to your company's long-term sustainability because it allows you to adapt to change, to grow into new markets, and distinguish your company from the competition. But there's a problem with innovation. It is usually a midterm to long-term play that offers little ROI in the short term. Simply put, great and useful ideas sometimes take more time and money to implement than many women entrepreneurs account for. And this is what, in fact, the entire venture capital system is all about. So VC, venture capital, refers to capital, i.e. money, that is invested in new businesses, in new processes or new products that are considered high risk because they're unproven. The VC industry is worth an estimated $211 billion globally. In 2021, $211 billion US got invested in unproven ideas. And it's based on the reality that genuinely useful ideas take time and money to develop and bring to market, because it's the fact, right? But this is a massive problem for women entrepreneurs who want and need to innovate in order to generate sustainable growth. Ladies, we have been mostly shut out of the venture capital industry. And in fact, according to research published in Bloomberg, just 2% of VC went to women founders in 2021. And for women who had a male co-founder, by the way, that share increased to 15.6%, and you'll be very irritated to know that. So the reality is that if you are a woman entrepreneur who understands that long-term sustainability of your company is anchored in your ability to innovate, you are going to need to figure out how to finance that innovation yourself. You're going to have to pay for it. And what's more, innovation usually takes more time and more money than you originally expect. So because when you're innovating, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to take wrong turns, you're going to need to do do-overs. This is a normal part of innovation. It costs time and money. And that brings us back to our commitment to 7 figures and why 7 figures is such a worthy goal, because having a 7-figure business gives you the cash flow and profitability to create a sustainable and substantial cash reserve that can be used to fund innovative projects and ideas. This reserve gives you the space, time, and resources to actually bring those innovations to market. The third reason is transformation. So the third core reason that we are so specific about our goal of helping women entrepreneurs create 7 figures in revenue, it's because of who she must become in order to accomplish this stretch goal. So our work and research into women entrepreneurs has uncovered that growing a company to over $1 million in revenue is a goal that actually fundamentally transforms the woman who pursues it. And I have certainly experienced this myself in having done this. But creating a company that generates over $1 million in annual revenue means you must build something that's bigger than you. And in the process of doing that, you will likely see some of the following transformations in your life. You're going to be forced to take risks, and this will build your resilience. You will necessarily build pathways through uncharted territory and new circumstances, and this will build your self-trust. You will experience the painful weight of other people's expectations and projections, and navigating this will build your sovereignty and independence. You will have more demands on your time than you have the capacity to fulfill, and this will strengthen your boundaries, your systems, and your innovations. Your success, hardships, and triumphs will inspire other people in your family, life, and community to pursue their own meaningful stretch goals. So, to be clear, our goal of helping women entrepreneurs scale sustainably and specifically beyond $1 million in revenue is not another standard for you to measure yourself against, nor is it a benchmark that separates exceptional women entrepreneurs from everyone else. Nor is it a marketing ploy designed to get attention, drive sales, and call out our target market. $1 million in annual revenue is a worthy goal that, through its pursuit, not necessarily its attainment, has the power to transform you and your business, allowing you to embody more of who you truly are and unlock more of your most impactful innovations. I wish you the best of success as you pursue this goal or whichever goal you have selected for yourself to help you transform your business and grow yourself.